I'm sorry, what was the name of that bird? Well, at least he didn't put his name to an Egyptian god. We open with what could technically be considered a recap, as it seemed to be coming off the Skylands military propaganda, newspapers. Apparently, over the Precure's time in the kingdom, Sora and the Azure Guard managed to defeat 10 Romborgs, and oh geez, I wonder which one of these characters is the anime protagonist. Well, if this were any light novel ever, sure. But yeah, things were going great for our blue lead, and I'm sure nothing bad was gonna happen from here on out.
You'll be sorry!
And surprisingly, after switching out the pig for Evil Judai, the OP changed once again, this time with Shala now being visible. Yeah, wonder how long this happy image will last. Anyway, the Azure Guard's duties weren't limited to just killing off the scrubs. Should have figured that Bullwinkle would eventually turn and join his cousins from the private Snafu cartoons. Shala tried to deal with him, but Sora had not only beaten her to the punch, but she had also discovered that an injury to one of his legs was making Bullwinkle go crazy. A nice character moment that does show that Sora will at least try to find a non-violent solution if possible, which is gonna contrast very nicely with the end of this episode. Anyway, after accomplishing their mission, Sora and Shala got a little time to recount their first meeting. Through it, we managed to see Sora's parents for the first time, as well as establish a sky jewel that the captain had received from Sora as a thanks for the rescue. Again, what a happy, hopeful moment! Can I help you? Back at the castle, Tsubasa was being visited by, Ned and Maud Flanders. Nah, of course they were his parents, who, assuming if those Romborg were attacking once per day, then that would mean that they hadn't seen their son who had been in the kingdom for 10 days. I mean, it had to have been at least a few days, and thus, yeah, his dad was kind of right to question why their son didn't visit them. Then again, we also haven't seen that many bird people in this kingdom yet. They probably really should work on that little bit of world building. In any case, Mashiro ended up stepping in on their little visit and introduced herself as Tsubasa's housemate, which of course had the parents making certain assumptions about the girl who was already taken. And for some reason, those birds were never seen again. Wonder what could have happened to them. Anyway, she was there to tell him that she was heading back to Earth as school was going to restart soon. And while the scene did have some nice visual storytelling, I think the strongest element here was the subtext. I mean, just the fact that Mashiro went to such almost needless detail about how everything was going to be fine, even though they were going to be literally worlds apart, made it kind of seem like she was covering up the fact that she was going to miss her friends and that she was just trying to comfort herself, but that can't be the case, right? Well, let's get away from the heavy stuff for now and get right into the quote-unquote fight of this week. I say that because this wasn't going to be the traditional fisticuffs from the Precure, because as it turned out, Batamon had actually come up with a pretty clever plan. He had purposely sent out a bunch of Romborgs and let them be seemingly defeated, when in reality, the Azure Guard didn't have any weapons that could purify them, sans their newest cadet. Thus, he just had them play possum until the time was right. And while the Precure had defeated half of them, 5 is still enough to make an evil Megazord. And kind of ironically, Murasame, aka Tsubasa, was the first to be taken out when he tried to take it on alone. To make matters worse, Sahikuyo here was a time bomb that was going to nuke the kingdom within an hour. God, I miss when Precure was this freaking dark. Realizing that a direct attack was probably just going to be a waste of time, Shala made a suggestion to Sora and Mashiro. Captain, are you aware of what happens when the heroes use their finisher at the beginning of a fight? Sure enough, as even hinted at with them omitting their usual roll call and the music not changing, things didn't work out, as this thing was actually the movie version of the 10th Angel, complete with hands that just came out freaking nowhere. Our original duo tried their hardest to defeat it, but it was clear that they needed some help. Thus, after a sudden jump cut that will be revisited later, Shala wrote in on the bird that might have actually been voiced by Takashi Washio. I mean, there was no credit for it for some reason. This led into an amazing sequence that I think was animated by Takashi Morita, who also did this sequence in the last episode, as well as Sora's finisher. Thus, appropriately enough, the captain pulled off a similarly impressive attack in front of her admirer, but you know how we compared this character with Xenoblade's Morag last week? Well, we might need to correct that.
ヒーローの出番だ。
With that, the original duo channeled their inner Rexes and defeated the monster. However, this gave Batamonda an opening to sneak into the castle, and while his breakdown in the last episode was actually kind of funny, it was outright terrifying here. Maybe it was more because of the music, but seeing him viciously lash out over just the thought that his monster was weak was kind of intimidating. And after bitch slapping Tsubasa off the way, he calmed down, which was probably the most off-putting thing. Too soon. Thus, he put a classic sleeping curse on the royalty, leaving Elle to fend for herself until Sora pulled one of the most violent Precure entrances ever, as not only did she break some glass, but she also dropped her usual very polite tone. And while bots probably could have defeated her in her current state, something on Sora seemed to prevent that. Seriously, great direction here that prevented us from seeing her face, which might have not looked too child-friendly after she saw her idol get blown away. Later, the Osprey Guard were unable to find Shala, much to our hero girl's dismay, but the other girl, who went viral last week, comforted her in a very nice moment. However, Sora then found a letter and the pendant Shala had made out of her Sky Jewel gift.
立ち止まるな、Hirogaru。また会おう。
Hey, where'd you come from? This motivated her to tell her team that they were all going back to Earth in order to both guard Elle and consult Yo-Yo about a cure for the King and Queen's curse. With that, the episode ended with them entering the portal. Cameo crew this week was Megumi, and yeah, girl, could you explain the concept of heel turns to Sora, just in case? So, yeah, this episode, it was, yeah, that's about as good a summary as any. I think they tried to get around the cliffhanger limitations I've mentioned before by ending on a more hopeful note, but yeah, in all honesty, this might be one of the lowest moments for this team so far, which, if some of my previous theories hold up, might only get worse for them. Yeah, the fact that Shala seemed to know that she was going to be quote-unquote taken out during that fight does raise about half a dozen red flags for me. Regardless, this was still a very strong episode for our lead hero girl. Seeing Sora start the episode as her usual chipper self as she showed compassion to a rampaging moose, and then ending with her so pissed off and angry that she scared away a baddie was quite the mood whiplash that I sadistically enjoyed every second of. It really just showed how much her idolization of Shala had shaped her and how seemingly losing her was pushing her into some more anti-hero directions. And again, this only makes me want to see Shala pull a Master Asia turn even more, and maybe even pull an Ys on that pendant. But yeah, the intensity of these scenes were only really as effective as they were, thanks to the overall more dour tone of this episode, from Batamonda being surprisingly intimidating after his more laid-back debut from last week, to the clear uneasiness Mashiro was going through over possibly leaving her friends. Yeah, another nice thing about this episode was how all of our main characters had at least something going on, like Tsubasa finally being reunited with his parents. Combine that with a brief but still very well animated fight of Shala atop their producer, and it was clear this episode did not pull any punches, especially in the emotional department. Kind of goes without saying, but overall, I thought this was a fantastic episode with a ton of developments that could have some even greater payoffs later. It is a bit of a pity that we're already leaving Skyland, but after this, a more innocent and probably mostly fillery episode next time would actually be kind of nice and relieving. So, after getting my voice and creative juices back after a few weeks worth of sickness, we actually managed to make a quick little overview of a certain other series before we get back to the big one. The PPG-Z review should be out sometime later this week, and then before we get back to the OGs, I think we'll do a little manga review. Of what exactly? Well, we'll keep that a surprise for now, but still to look forward to it. And until then though, for now my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I've got some cleaning to do. Oh god, it's everywhere!